Hey, what's up, nerds? My name's Chris. So I have been learning the Java language the past couple months. It's new to me. I've been a programmer for a little while, but I haven't actually worked with Java. So I thought, while I'm learning it, maybe we can learn together. So if you're interested in learning the Java language, which is a staple in coding, check out this video. Hope you like it. All right, there's a couple things I want to talk about today. Three of them in particular. The first being the IDE, which we'll get into here in a second, variables, and methods. And this is sort of basic programming stuff. This isn't Java specific. This is just real basic things that you need to know that you'll see in almost any language. So the IDE stands for Integrated Development Environment. So the IDE stands for Integrated Development Environment, and that is just basically the tool that you're going to use to code. It's your word processor of code, basically. It usually shows a file structure, it usually shows error handling, so it knows when you've done something wrong. But yeah, it's just basically the program you're going to use to make your Java applications. So the one I'm using is IntelliJ. IntelliJ is the one I got recommended to from a developer. Just search for IntelliJ, look for the community version, I think it's called. It's whatever the free one is. You're not missing out on any like crazy features or anything like that, especially as like a beginning developer. So we've got IntelliJ open here. I'll start up a new project to show you like how to get it set up, what you're looking at. These will probably be all in red and say like no JDK or something like that. We can get into what those are, but basically it's just the version of Java that you've decided to install. I would just go to download JDK and it'll find all of these ones that are already made. These are just different companies, their versions of Java. They're all generally the same. They just add different features and things like that. The one I'm most familiar with, the one that I'm working with right now, is the Amazon Corretto. So click on Amazon Corretto and download, and it will show up, in your versions. So once you've done that, you can see now that I've got the SDK selected. It's this Java version 11.0. That's again the Amazon Corretto that we've chosen. Don't worry about any of these other things right here. We're just sticking with a Java platform, and then hit next. And you can always download templates with a lot of these IDEs, with a lot of these applications. You can download templates. So if you're making a game, it'll make a lot of the files that you'll need with games. For right now, we're just making a basic command line app. So you can hit that create project from template. Command line app is the only option that we've got, so we're going to choose that. And a command line app, if you're not familiar, is anytime you open up Terminal, this is a command line app. It's got no visuals, it's just real basic. You would just be typing into it. It might like show up something else. But yeah, this is a command line app, and that's what we're going to be creating. So we'll hit next. We'll say first Java app as the project name, shows you where it lives, the location. Package is sort of like a signature in an app. So if I was Google, I would say com.google. If I'm me, I might say like, Chris Lang, com.chrislang. Whatever your URL would be, whatever like your internet address would be, google.com, amazon.com, chrislang.com, you would basically reverse it, is the general practice. So we'll say com.chrislang and hit finish. Okay, so we've got our first app. It's looking good. IntelliJ is going to show some tips. So there's a lot going on here. You're going to learn over time that these IDEs are expansive. They've got a lot of tools that will be awesome once you understand what you're doing. But for right now, let's just look at it as a text editor. So you can see that package that we just finished. So again, this is like a signature, so you know that this is coming from me. And then we've got some actual code here, which we'll go over in a little bit. What I first want to look at, once you hit the side there, you've got some structure. So this is just like a typical file structure, just like your Finder or your Explorer in Windows. So you can see this first Java app is sort of the main folder, but then you've got a few others in here as well. Now, this idea one is basically something you don't have to worry about right now. It's being put in by IntelliJ to just set up some standards, things like that. It's not important, don't even have to look at it. Source is always going to be a good folder that you actually will be digging into. So src, source, is where a lot of your files are going to live. So then you see this com.chrislang here from our signature, and then you've got this main, and this main is the only file that we have open at the moment. We can create more, and we will, but right now, this is literally the only file, and it's always going to be the first file in a Java application. Main is the first thing that app looks for, and that's where your whole magic is gonna happen. We will go over more features of the IDE as we kind of explore this app together. Again, basically, you're going to be running code, you're going to be debugging code, things like that, and all of that will come from this. Again, we're in this main file right now. That's what you're seeing right here. You can see main.java. Java obviously is the extension for these files. But let's move on to variables. All right, so let's look into some variables. So you can see now on my screen that I've put some variables down on my main.java file. The way I'm gonna kind of reference these things, it's like a recipe. A lot of these files you'll see kind of follow that same lead, where they've got the ingredients and they've got what they're doing. And so the variables are basically the ingredients. When you look at a recipe, you've got X amount of Y. And so that's what a lot of these files are gonna have as well, is they're gonna have the ingredients and they're gonna have the methods we'll talk about later. So looking at these ingredients, so an ingredient has a couple things to it. It's got what they call a type, which is the type of ingredient it is. They've got the name for it, and then they've got the amount, usually. Not always. You can make an ingredient that doesn't have an amount yet or anything like that, because maybe it's being figured out later. So right now we're making some mashed potatoes. This is our mashed potatoes program. So you can, to start, we've got what we call an integer, int, integer. It's a whole number, basically. So we've got an int of potatoes equals 3. Second, we have a double. Double is basically anything that's not a whole number, so it's a fraction. So we've got a double of cups of milk, which is 2.5. Then we have a char. Char stands for character. And a character is not often used, but it's just sort of one of those things that's been around for a while, and so we still have it. And it is literally one character, so it's one letter, and it's in single quotes in Java. So you can see we've got char, the letter B is equal to B. And then we've got Boolean, and Boolean is just basically true or false. So Boolean is a 0 or 1. It is true or false. That's it. So Boolean is mashed is equal to true. Now you notice the last one is string, and it looks a little different from the other types. That's because it's just a little bit more complicated, and it basically has a bunch of features and things it can do. So that's why you'll notice A, it's uppercase, and B, it has a different color. But string is just a collection of letters. You use double quotes, and so we're calling the name variable mashed potatoes. Now, an IDE, again, is very helpful. It's constantly trying to make sure you're making the best code available. And so you'll see that there's this little green squiggly line like you might see in Microsoft Word or something like that when you made a spelling mistake. And so if you hover over that, it'll show you this was never used, which is good to know. You don't want a variable if you're not going to use it. So either get rid of it, or maybe you meant to use it somewhere or whatever. So just so you know, there are different ones. There's warnings where they're usually like a orange or yellow line, and those are not gonna break the system, they're just recommended. And then you've got ones like the greens where they're just kind of recommendations. And then you will get red ones, and those are the ones where they're like, this is going to break your application if you try and run this right now. But that's it for variables right now. We've got the ingredients to our code. Let's see if we make something. All right, so next thing we're gonna be looking at is the methods. These are basically the directions on how to do something. In a recipe, it would be, cut your vegetables, etc. So we're actually already looking at one. So if you can see here, this public static void main, that's all a method. And I know it's like a lot of really weird words if you're not familiar with like looking at code before. We'll get into public later. Static we'll get into later. Void is basically saying you're not expecting anything. Once this thing runs, you're not going to get anything back. It's not expecting something to return, which in some cases you are. You might expect, hey, I need a number once this thing is done. But with void, it means you're not getting anything back. And then main is the actual name of the method. So again, like I said, every Java application starts with this main method. This string and args, we'll get into that later. But again, an example to see something happen. So there's a way to basically put text onto the terminal. And the way to do that, there's a shortcut called SOUT. So S out, basically, which stands for system out. And so if you hit SOUT and hit tab, you now get another method. So again, it doesn't look the same as the other one, but you can see these sort of parentheses that are similar to the other one. And so whenever you see the parentheses, you know that's probably a method. So the system out method basically takes whatever string you put in these parentheses and will shoot it out on the terminal once you launch the program. So let's see if we can make that happen. So we'll type hello world, which is a very common phrase in programming. Okay, great. So then we want to run this program. So the way we do that is on Mac, you're just going to two-finger click and hit this run main. So it's going to run this file, and we should see something pop up. So after a minute, it's going to build, it's going to take its time. You will then see this hello world show up with then process finish with exit code 0. Don't worry about that. Basically means that it didn't have any errors. But yeah, we've got our hello world on the screen. So you can type anything in place of that and it will show up every time you run it. So the reason we have variables is because we want to be able to kind of inject them into other methods and maybe change them, things like that. An example is maybe we want the amount of potatoes to show up on the screen. And so the way we would do that is that same S out, and then we would type the amount of potatoes is equal to, and then just like you were making a math problem in addition, you would then type this plus sign, and then you could put our variable potatoes, which is spelled wrong, but still accurate. So now if we run the application, we should see hello world, and we should see the amount of potatoes is equal to 3, which is what we set it to before. So that is your basic intro to Java. We've learned an IDE, which is the tool that we're going to use to be building these applications. We've learned about variables, which are the ingredients of every file that we're making and the types that they can come in. And then we've learned a little bit about methods, and methods will become a lot more advanced as we go on. But basically, again, methods are just a way that we tell the application what to do with the code. So hope you enjoyed this intro to Java with me. I'm looking forward to learning with you guys. And let me know if there's anything you guys are wanting to learn or if there's any clarifications. So have a good one.